Please can we take all this
Good evening, interns and tutors, as well as any pharmacists that are joining us, and welcome to the 2022 pre-registration examination online workshop. And tutors, as well as any pharmacists that are joining us, and welcome to the 2022 pre-registration examination online and tutors, as well as any pharmacists that are joining us, and welcome to the 2022 pre-registration examination online and tutors, as well as any pharmacists that are joining us, and welcome to the 2022 pre-registration
We will then go over an overview of the remote examination conditions and end with the Q&A.
So I'd like to begin by welcoming Ms. Mokoena tonight, and thank you so much for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Diane. Good afternoon, colleagues, and I hope that you are ready for this workshop. I think for me, it's just to welcome you and to wish you the best of luck in this next part of the journey. I know you've been busy with your CPD. We are now seeing very good results, and it actually shows a level of commitment which pharmacists or us from Pharmacy Council would love to see. So congratulations to those that have already submitted what we have asked for. I was happy to see that what I discussed with yourself in the beginning of the year, I was not muted. I think majority of you had a plea when we asked you to make sure that by the time we reach this time, we are very, very close to the finishing line. So first, I want to thank you. If you have not done what I'm talking about, please make sure that tonight you revisit that chapter of your life. We are preparing for the exams, and I know that as much as you think it's a lot of work on your side, even on the office, we are working very, very hard. And we do this because we really love this profession as much as you do. Just to make sure that we prepare yourself for the world ahead. I'm not going to be long. I think if you had a very heavy day like I had, and I think you do because it's a Thursday. Yeah, it's a Thursday. Yeah, you will agree with me that we want to get straight to the point. I just wanted to leave you with these words, something that has been in my mind for the rest of this week. I don't know why, but maybe for some of you it will make sense. It's some words of encouragement borrowed from somewhere, something that you can also go and look up for. Talks about life, and it reads, life is like a camera. Focus on what is important, capture the good times, develop the negatives, develop from the negative. And if things don't work out, take another shot. And with this message, I want to also encourage those that are not writing for the first time, that are writing on the second time, to say, we are with you and we wish you luck. And we are hoping that this time you are going to do it best. One of my professors many, many years ago, which I would not like to disclose the name because you might end up trying to work out my age, used to say, one of the reasons why during my time pharmacy was, I'm not saying it's not hard now, but I was saying it was almost impossible to graduate. And he said that when you do not make it the first time, you are being prepared to be the best that the world has to see. And with those few words, I am encouraging you to really prepare very hard for this exam. And I know I've seen that the results, because they are always presented to us, they look good. But I would like to encourage that if for some reason it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. You have an opportunity to take another shot. But the next time you take it, give it your best. With those few words, good luck, and good luck with your examination. make us proud and ensure that CPD, please, let's get it right. Let's make sure that when we get to the next phase, which will be placement, you are not left behind. There are huge challenges out there with placement. Walk this path with us and believe you mean you are not going to get bent, because the minute we leave you behind, it becomes very difficult for you to join in. So let's get the CPD right. Let's prepare ourselves for this exam. If you were my generation, I'll say take a pen and paper and start taking notes. But I know that I'm talking to a different generation. But the team that is here is your generation. So I'm sure you will be singing from the same hymn book. And ultimately, we will be very, very proud. Hoping to meet a whole lot of you when we start opening for the conferences, and hoping that you will go out and make pharmacy proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those words of encouragement. Okay, so tonight we are joined by experts within our pre-registration examination task team. We are joined by Prof. Steenekamp. He is a pre-registration moderator, as well as Ms. Rafiwe Mokhali, who is a pre-registration examiner. So we have got the expertise here tonight to really give us an overview of the content and to ensure us that we are preparing for the upcoming exam. From the Office of the Registrar, Ms. Malako is the Senior Manager for the Pre-Registration Unit, and she is joining us tonight. And my name is Deanne Johnston, and I'm a manager in the Pre-Registration Unit, and I mainly deal with the interns. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the members of staff from the Office of the Registrar who have assisted in making tonight possible. Just to begin with, the using this platform, interns can ask and engage with the facilitators using the Q&A function. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please type them in the question function. We have got specific time points in our presentation where we will stop and answer these questions. If you are using YouTube or Facebook, you can also type in your question there, and that question will then be transferred to this platform for us to respond on. So please make sure that you are using that facility to ask and type in your question so that we can answer them. Just on another note, is that tonight's workshop deals with the pre-registration examination. Your CPD queries will be answered at the CPD session that you are having, the feedback session that you are having in June. So please don't ask CPD related questions unless they are relating to the examination in some way. But all of the information that you might need, you can send us a query and we can answer your specific CPD questions. Alternatively, you can wait for that session that we will be holding in June. Okay, so the pre-registration examination is one examination consisting of 120 multiple choice questions. This examination is split over 2 days, and you need to write both sections of the examination. So at the same sitting, so if you are going to be writing in August, you need to write on both the Friday and the Saturday. On day one of the examination, we will be tackling the calculation questions, in which you will receive 40 calculation questions, and the time for this section of the examination is 2 hours. The sub-minimum applied for this section is 60%. So that means that out of 40 multiple choice questions, you need to get 24 questions correct in order to reach the sub-minimum of 60%. On day 2 of the examination, you will then have the opportunity to answer questions relating to general practice. You have 2.5 hours, and the sub-minimum for this section is 50%. Later on, we are going to be explaining that the practice examination is a compulsory exam for those that are writing the pre-registration examination, and this gives you the opportunity to experience the exam conditions prior to the actual exam. So please take this opportunity to engage in the practice exam. Make sure that you are experiencing and using the examination conditions, you have your references at hand, etc., so that you can really use this opportunity to prepare for what the pre-registration examination is going to be like. Okay, just another note that the examination is set across the community, institutional, and manufacturing sectors. So questions relating to these areas of practice, our examiners and moderators are from these various areas or from these various sectors. So we ensure that the examination crosses all 6 of the domains, as well as all of the sectors of practice. So it's really important. We know that you are very used to working with the domains and competency standards for pharmacists, because this is what you've been doing within your CPDs. And in the same way, we have blueprinted this blueprinted the pre-registration examination using these criteria. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Prof. Steenekamp, who is going to give us more information about what the examination is on. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you, Deanne. Just from my side, welcome. And I just want to confirm that my voice is audible.
Yes, Prof.
Thank you. Now, the first question that you can ask, what is the examination based on? And as you have heard, it is on the competency standards and the 6 domains. Now, if you take a look at the left-hand side, you will note that there is a percentage breakup representing the number of questions in percentage fraction on each of these domains. Can I ask for the next slide, please? Okay. With specific reference to the calculations, and we use a blueprint for it, and some of the domains are not suited for calculation questions. The domains that are applicable to calculations, you will see it's domain 1, 2, 3, and 4. And approximately 68% of the questions comes from domain 3. The other 42%, to be exact, comes from the remaining 3 domains. And the reason for the one domain to be much more than the others, it's based on the type of questions that can be asked, and this domain is suited and corresponds with what is written in the blueprint. Next slide, please. In terms of the type of questions, there is different types of questions that can be asked, and on this slide, you will see a breakdown of the types of questions according to the different competency standards. Now, on this slide, we have the competency standards from 1.4, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and then the type of questions that you can expect from these specific sections. Next slide, please. In terms of competency standard 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, and 4.2, you will see there's a breakup of the type of questions that you can see there. And I believe for the presentation might be available afterwards. I'm not sure about that 100%. Can we see the next slide, please? The first thing that I would like to comment on in terms of preparation for the exam is that you can use certain textbooks. And although there are more than one type of textbook concerning pharmaceutical calculations, the one textbook that I would recommend above all the others are Pharmaceutical Calculation from Howard C. Ansell. That's the image on the right-hand side of the two books, the most right-hand one. Or the other book, Pharmaceutical Practice, is also of value, but I do recommend Pharmaceutical Calculations, as the majority of calculations are covered in fair detail in that textbook. And remember, in terms of the textbooks are more of value in preparation for the exam. I know that the exam is an open book and you are allowed to consult your sources. However, as there is only 2 hours available for 40 questions, the time is not going to be sufficient for you to check every type of calculation in the textbook. So use the textbook prior to the exam as a preparatory work so that you are ready for the exam when it comes. You can bring the textbook, but the majority of preparation should be beforehand. Next slide, please. In terms of preparation, there are certain tips and advice that we can give. And the most important one for me is that, and that goes with the preparation of for the exam. Make sure that you understand the principles behind calculations. Do not try to memorize calculations. The moment you start memorizing calculations, you do stand a very large chance to get confused in the exam setting. Make sure that you are aware of the SI units and make sure that you know how to do conversions. For instance, percentage weight per volume, you should know that it is the same as the number of grams per 100 ml of solution. Although there's not a lot of equations applicable to pharmaceutical calculations, certain equations are of value, and you are allowed to bring a sheet with the calculation and equation types that you expect to see. For instance, for dilutions, C1, V1, C2, V2 is a very well-known equation. So write it down and make sure that you have all the equations available if you're afraid you're not going to remember them and you would like to use an equation sheet. In terms of equipment, there's not a lot of equipment needed. The most important piece of equipment for surely will be your calculator. Ensure that it is a scientific calculator. Ensure that you are familiar with it. And with that I mean, use the same calculator that you have practiced with. Don't practice with one calculator and bring another one to the exam setting. And be very familiar with the functions of the calculator. And although people sometimes do forget, please check the batteries beforehand. If you're not sure of the age of the batteries or the battery life, please change them before you start with the exam. You don't want the calculator to die on you halfway through the exam. And then make sure that you have paper and pens available, as you will need to do some calculations on rough paper. Next slide, please. For the interns that would like a conversion sheet, there is an example of a conversion sheet for weights on this slide. Just quickly how this works. On the left-hand side, you start with micrograms, then you go to milligrams, to grams, and then kilograms. If you want to go from micrograms to milligrams, you divide by 1,000. Similarly, if you want to convert from milligrams to grams, you divide by 1,000. That is the black arrows. The yellowish arrows is in the reverse direction. For instance, if you want to convert from kilograms to grams, you multiply by 1,000. And if you want to convert from grams to milligrams, for instance, you also multiply by 1,000. This is typically how this conversion sheet works. There is a similar one for volumes, and that is on the next slide. It works exactly the same as the one for weights. So if you struggle with the conversions, make a conversion sheet for you and take it with you in the exam setting. Next slide, please. In terms of the exam itself, if you are in the exam setting, there's a number of helpful tips and they are listed on this slide. The first one, if you have a calculation and you want to use a formula or the question requires using a formula, please ensure that you select the correct formula. The second tip is more in terms of your calculations and that the answers that you have written down. Make sure your transcribing is correct and that you are familiar and at ease with what you do. In terms of calculations, it's always a good practice to exercise and make a range of what you expect the answer should be. So what I mean with that is estimate the possible answer if possible and double check calculations. Do the calculation twice if needed, if you're unsure, but make sure you do not make an unnecessary mistake here. Next slide, please. Dr. Johnson has alluded to the time for the paper. Just a refresher, it's 120 minutes, 2 hours. You have 40 MCQs that you have to answer in this 120 minutes. So that gives you approximately 3 minutes per question. Okay, you must remember that some questions, there might be one that you need to spend a little bit of more time on. That's not a serious issue. For instance, if you have to spend 4 minutes on one question, there are questions that's fairly easy and that's going to be fine. You're going to spend less time on it. Don't get stressed if you have to spend a little bit more time on a particular question. Then just one point, we don't do negative marking and there's no need to leave a blank question. If you don't know the answer, then guess. You have a 25% chance of guessing correct. Just don't guess all your answers. Next slide, please. Okay, interns, this brings us to typical calculations. What you can expect in the paper. I'm going to start off with reading this calculation. A 55-year-old male patient is stabilized on warfarin 5 milligrams daily at a cost of R28.80 per month. The patient has his INR monitored weekly at a cost of R117.70 per test. The patient has heard about rivaroxaban from his doctor and wants to know the cost implications after treatment. The cost of rivaroxaban 50 milligram daily is $637.95 per month. What is the difference in cost between these two options? Okay, if we can quickly go to the memo. Interns, when you approach a question and read it, break it up in digestible proportions for you. In this question, we have a patient, he's using warfarin. The warfarin cost is R28.80 a month. He has weekly INR tests that costs R117.70 per test. So there will be 4 of them in a month. Now he wants to consider changing to a different treatment and he wants to know what will be the cost between the difference between the two treatments. So the total cost for the warfarin treatment will be the cost for the tests plus the tablets, and that goes to a total of 499 Rand 60. Rivaroxaban is 637 Rand 95 a month. So the difference will be 637.95 minus 499.60. It's 138 Rand 35. So Rivaroxaban is going to cost him about 139 bucks more per month. Okay, next question. In example 2, let's start with reading the question and see what we can identify what is asked. A patient requires an intravenous infusion of 0.9% weight per volume sodium chloride. In your hospital pharmacy department, you have water for injection BP and 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride. Assuming no volume displacement effects, what volume of the 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution BP need to be added aseptically to an expandable PVC infusion bag containing 100 ml of water for injection BP to produce the required sodium chloride concentration? Okay, let's break up this question. You have a request for 0.9% weight per volume sodium chloride. You don't have it in stock. What you have instead is water for injection and sodium chloride solution 4.5% weight per volume. So now they ask you, if you take 100 ml of water for injection, how much of the 4.5% weight per volume solution do you need to add? So let's quickly take a look at the memo. First off, this is a typical example of where you can use alligation. Now, alligation looks complex and difficult, but it is not. So how do I identify it as an alligation question? With all alligation questions, there are 3 different strings at play. The first one is the strength that we need, 0.9% in this case. And then there's 2 strings that we need to use. The 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution, and then you will see there's a 0%. Now that 0% refers to the water for injection. And the reason why it is identified as 0%, the strings refer to the active ingredient in question. And in this case, it's sodium chloride. And water for injection doesn't contain any sodium chloride, therefore the 0% allocation to it. In terms of which one do you write where, the 2 strings that you need to use to prepare the required one is always on the left-hand side. So 0% and 4.5% on the left. Doesn't matter which one is on top and which one is below. In the middle, you always write the strength that you have to prepare, 0.9%. Then what you do next is simple subtraction. 4.5 minus 0.9 gives you 3.6. Similarly, 0.9 minus 0 gives you 0.9. In terms, and you use the absolute values, you can ignore the minus symbol. Another pointer, the answers that you are getting on the right, the 3.6 and 0.9 is always in parts, always. So how do you go further? How do you proceed further? How do you interpret the parts? And that you do as follows. If you take 3.6 parts of the water for injection and you mix it with 0.9 parts of the 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride, you will obtain 0.9% weight per volume sodium chloride. So now we need to convert the parts to volumes. We know that the water for injection that we have is 100 mils. It is stated in the question text, and that is represented by 3.6 parts. So if 100 mils are equal to 3.6 parts, you can do an ordinary proportion calculation to calculate the 0.9 parts, and then you will see it comes to a 25 milliliter answer. So this means you need to take 25 mils of your 4.5% weight per volume sodium chloride solution and then add it to the 100 mils of water for injection in the expandable PVC bag. So the total volume of this product will then be 125 mils and the strength will be 0.9%. Okay, next slide. In example 3, it reads as follows. Given that the relative molecular mass of sodium chloride is 58.5 grams per mole, what amount of sodium chloride powder is required to prepare 300 moles of a solution containing 50 millimoles per liter? Okay. So you have a question in where they've asked you, you have to prepare 300 moles of a solution with a strength of 50 millimoles per liter. Let's quickly go to the answer, please. First off, you need to know what millimoles mean. If you don't know that, you're going to struggle with this calculation. Okay, let's explain what millimoles mean. Millimoles in number terms is 1 millimole is exactly the same in number terms as the molecular weight of the substance. So the molecular weight of sodium chloride is 58.5 grams per mole. So if you take 58.5 milligrams, you will have 1 millimole because there's 1,000 millimoles in 1 mole of a substance. So the moment that you know what 1 millimole weighs, it's a simple calculation to calculate 50 millimoles. So 50 millimoles will be 58.5 milligrams multiplied by 50. That gives you 2,925 milligrams. Now, if you take 2,925 milligrams and you dissolve it in 1 liter of solution, you will have a 50 millimole per liter solution. However, they ask to prepare only 300 milliliters. So therefore, a simple proportion calculation, and then you will get to a weight of 877.5 milligrams. So if you take 877.5 milligrams and you dissolve it and make up to a volume of 300 moles, you will have the equivalent concentration of 50 millimoles per liter. Next slide, please. Okay, the following example is a typical isotonicity calculation. Now, from previous experience, these type of calculations are not frequently encountered in practice. So this is typical types of calculations that interns do find more difficult because they don't get a lot of exposure to these. So if you are not very comfortable with these types of calculations, please do practice them beforehand. Can we quickly go back to the text? Yes, please. Thank you. A pharmacist receives the following prescription: epinephrine or ephedrine hydrochloride 0.5 grams, chlorobutanol 0.25 grams, dextrose anhydrous QS, and purified water AD 50 milliliters. And then the question asks, how many grams of anhydrous dextrose should be used in compounding the prescription to make an isotonic solution. And then the next section is very important. They give you information that you will need to use. The sodium chloride equivalent for a 1% weight per volume solution of ephedrine hydrochloride is 0.3. And for a 1% weight per volume solution of chlorobutanol is 0.24. And for a 1% solution of anhydrous dextrose is 0.18. So that's the equivalence that we're going to use in our next slide. Can we quickly go to the memo, please? Okay, first off, when you have to use the sodium chloride equivalent method, it means that you need to convert everything that is in the formula to equivalent sodium chloride weights. So let's start off with the first one, which is the ephedrine hydrochloride. And this is where you use the information that I provided on the previous slide. There I said the equivalent for a 1% weight per volume solution of ephedrine is 0.3 of sodium chloride. So we know that 1 gram of ephedrine hydrochloride is equivalent to 0.3 grams of sodium chloride. However, in our formula, we only have 0.5 grams of ephedrine. So 0.5 grams of ephedrine is therefore equivalent to 0.15 grams of sodium chloride. Similarly, 0.25 grams of chlorobutanol is equivalent to 0.06 grams of sodium chloride. So this total sodium chloride equivalent in our formula is therefore 0.15 grams of sodium chloride plus 0.06 grams of sodium chloride. And that comes to a weight of 0.21 grams of sodium chloride. So the two substances that's in the product is in total equivalent to 0.21 grams of sodium chloride. Now you need to make it isotonic. Now the first thing that you need to determine is how much of the adjusting substance, which is dextrose in this case, should be added. Remember from your university days that an isotonic solution of sodium chloride contains 0.9 grams of sodium chloride per 100 ml. Therefore, our solution is only 50 ml. So if it was isotonic, it must contain 0.45 grams of sodium chloride per 50 ml. Currently, it has the equivalent of 0.21 grams of sodium chloride. So the quantity of sodium chloride that we need is 0.45 grams minus 0.21 grams, and that is 0.24 grams. But you're not going to add sodium chloride. You need to convert that to an equivalent weight of anhydrous dextrose. And once again, from the information given, we know that 1 gram of anhydrous dextrose is equivalent to 0.18 grams of sodium chloride. Therefore, 0.24 grams of sodium chloride will be equivalent to 1.33 grams of anhydrous dextrose. So in this formula, you need to add 1.33 grams of anhydrous dextrose to render it isotonic. Next question. In calculation example 5, we also have a isotonicity calculation. But the difference between this one and the previous one is that the approach that we're going to use here is different. This one is based on freezing point depression. So in terms of a freezing point depression calculation, let's see how we're going to approach it. Let's start off with reading the text. Calculate the quantity of sodium chloride in grams that should be added to 150 moles of a 1% weight per volume solution of apomorphine hydrochloride to render the solution isotonic with blood plasma. The freezing point depression, that's delta TF, of a 1% weight per volume solution of the drug and sodium chloride is 0.08 and 0.58 degrees respectively. We can quickly go to the memo, please. The moment you see a freezing point depression calculation, there is, in this case, a formula that you can use. And the formula is W equals 0.52 minus A divided by B. Okay, before you start using this formula, you need to know what the symbols mean and what do they stand for. W is the weight of adjusting substance that you will need to add to render the solution isotonic. So this is what you're going to calculate. A stands for the freezing point depression of the solution that you have. That will be the hypotonic one that you need to make isotonic. And B will be the freezing point depression value of a 1% solution of the adjusting substance. Now, in the case that we have, the adjusting substance is sodium chloride. And the freezing point depression value of a 1% weight per volume solution of sodium chloride is 0.58. That was given. The freezing point depression of the hypotonic solution is the apomorphine hydrochloride solution, and it was a 1% solution, so you use the 0.08 degrees value just as is. So then you do the calculation, and your answer that you get will be in grams per 100 moles or percentage weight per volume. So the answer that we got is 0.758. So this means that you have to add 0.758 grams of sodium chloride per 100 mole of your apomorphine solution. And because your apomorphine solution is 150 moles, we have to do a quick calculation, and then you will see that you need to add 1.137 grams of sodium chloride to 150 moles of your apomorphine solution to render it isotonic. Next one, please. Okay, example 6. Example 6 reads as follows. How many milliequivalents of potassium ion are there in a 250 milligram penicillin V potassium tablet? And then there's a note. The molecular weight of penicillin V is 388.48. There is 1 potassium ion in the molecule, and the valence of potassium is 1. Okay, before we take a look at the memo. This is a milliequivalent calculation. Also similar to tonicity calculations, not one that you frequently encounter in practice. However, it's not a difficult calculation if you know what to do. And there's a very simple approach when you do a milliequivalent calculation. Let's quickly go to the memo, please. When you do a milliequivalent calculation, there's 2 steps involved, or 2 things that you need to calculate. The first one is the number of milliequivalents per millimole, and there's a formula for it. Milliequivalents per millimole you obtain by taking the valence and multiply it by the number. Now the valence can be either the valence of the positive or negative species in the compound, and you multiply that by the appropriate number. So let's use potassium because this question centers around potassium. They state in the question text that the penicillin V molecule contains 1 potassium ion. So we know the number is 1. They also give the valence, and we also see that it's 1. You use the absolute number. You don't need to use the plus or minus symbol of the valence. So if you do the calculation, you get 1 multiplied by 1. So this compound has 1 milliequivalent per millimole. That's the first thing that you need to calculate. The second item or value that you need to calculate is the equivalent weight of the compound. And to calculate the equivalent weight, there's also a formula. And the formula for equivalent weight is you take the molecular weight of the compound, you just express it in milligrams per millimole, and you divide it by the number of milliequivalents per millimole. So the first item that we calculated, the milliequivalent per millimoles for pen V is 1. We're going to use that value in the second calculation. The molecular weight of the penicillin V was given. It's 388.48, and you can make a note. The molecular weight expressed in milligrams per millimole will have exactly the same numeric value as the molecular weight expressed in grams per mole. This means you take exactly the value that I've given you as the molecular weight, and you can use the units as milligrams per millimole, and you divide it by the number of equivalents per millimole, and then you'll get the equivalent weights. The equivalent weight for pen V is 388.48 milligrams per milliequivalent. Okay, what does this mean? This means that if you weigh 388.48 milligrams of pen V, you have 1 milliequivalent. Now, in the question, they ask how much milliequivalents of potassium will there be in a 250 milligram tablet. So we know that 388.48 milligrams contains 1 milliequivalent. Therefore, in 250 milligrams, it's a normal proportion calculation. In that tablet will be 0.644 milliequivalents of potassium. So, to summarize, for milliequivalent calculations, doesn't matter what they will ask you in terms of milliequivalents. There are 2 things that you need to calculate. First off, the number of milliequivalents per millimole, and second, the equivalent weight. If you have those 2 values, you can answer any question concerning milliequivalents. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the end of the examples for calculations.
Thank you, Prof. So at this point, if any of the interns have questions regarding the calculation section, if you could please type them in the chat function, and then we will be answering them. So we're just going to give you just a minute or 2 to type those questions.
Hi, Deanne. We have our first question. How do we access past exam papers?
Thanks, Natalie. So past exam papers, we do have a practice examination, and we will be discussing that a little bit later. And that is a full examination paper according to the examination blueprints that all interns have to complete, and that will give you practice. Other than that, there are some papers that are available on the website. There aren't many papers in circulation, though, so interns need to use other sources. So perhaps we can ask Prof. Steenekamp, in terms of the calculations, Prof, where would they find examples to go through?
Okay. When I started with the section on calculations, I referred to a specific textbook, Pharmaceutical Calculations. Now, in that textbook, at the end of each chapter, there's numerous examples of the type of calculations that we have handled here. And if they work through that and need still some more exercise, at the end of that textbook, there's review problems, which is a number of extra problems. There's a huge amount of calculations in that textbook. So I would really recommend the interns to obtain a copy or the exercises in the book from somewhere. I know certain universities, it is a prescribed textbook, but I'm not sure for all universities. But I can't stress enough how important that textbook is for practice examples.
Thank you so much, Prof. I see that we don't have any further questions. So perhaps if you have questions that come to mind a little bit later, I think Prof will be staying with us until the end. So if you have any further questions that you would like him to ask, we can take them a little bit later as well. So at this point, we're going to take a break, just a quick break, so to grab something to drink. But I would like to ask you that during the break, please could you complete this question, this questionnaire for us, and this is just going to help us to review the questions relating to the general section of the examination. So I'm going to post this in the chat, and please would you take it will only take you just a few seconds a few minutes to answer these questions, and these questions will then be posted, and the answers are going to be reviewed when Ms. Mogale takes us through the presentation after the break that we're going to have. So don't leave us, but take a 10-minute break. It's almost 5:02 at the moment, so let's start again at 18:05. And during this, please would you take the opportunity to answer these questions for us, and these are going to be reviewed as soon as we come back from our break. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. So thank you for taking the opportunity to answer this form. And as mentioned, we are now moving on to the general section of the examination. And this section of the workshop is going to be facilitated by Ms. Rafiwe Mogale. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ms. Mogale, and for sharing this really valuable information that you have after being part of the task team for the past few years. Thank you so much. Rafiwe?
Thank you, Dr. D. Here.
Thank you.
Good evening. All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to the interns. I'm just going to present to you the general section of the exams that we'll be writing now in June. I hope that you're going to enjoy your internship here because it goes by very fast. It's CPDs and exams and all that, but please try and enjoy it because I believe that the internship here builds you. We will know what kind of pharmacist you are when you complete your internship, whether you're going to have strong values or weak values. So this one, just enjoy it. Thank you very much. Can you start, Dr. D? So for general questions, it's just general questions, but remember that we're not saying general knowledge, whether we're going to ask you some general questions from the streets. So these questions are pharmacy related, but they're general questions, not like the calculations. So from the blueprint, I think you are quite familiar now with the 6 domains. From the blueprint, the general questions will come from 90% of the questions will come from domain 1, domain 2, domain 3, and domain 5. So the other 2, there are just few questions, but please try and do all the questions. Maybe you can, get some bonus points. For domain 1, which is your public health, and domain 2, that's your safe and rational use of medicines, and your domain 3, that's your supply of medicines and medical devices. And then for your domain 5, that's your professional and personal practice. So most of the questions will come from those domains. So over 90% of the questions out of the 80 will come from the 4 domains. Next slide, please. So what references can you use in order to prepare for the general questions? First, you can use the South African Medicines Formulary, or you can use the MIMS or the MIMS desk reference, which is your MDR. But we also provided you with some PDF references. That's your essential medicine list and some treatment guidelines. So those are 3. There's a primary healthcare one, and then there's 2 at hospital. That's a pediatric and adult hospital, EML and STGs. The second one is the Good Pharmacy Practice Manual and Associated Rules. The third one is the SA Guide to Good Manufacturing Practice. The fourth one is the Pharmacy Act, and the fifth one is the Medicines Act. All these are available on the website for you to download and to go through them. But we just want to advise you that when you're looking at the references, just check whether they are current. For instance, if you're going to use a South African Medicines Formulary, and the current one is the 13th edition. So if you're going to be using 11th edition, you might be in trouble because there has been some changes in terms of medicines, in terms of treatment for a certain condition. So your answers may be wrong because you're using an older reference. So please try and make sure that you are using current references. Next slide, please. So one other additional electronic references. I hope that you are now familiar in navigating the SAPC website. So because you've been doing your CPDs by now, so you should be knowing how to navigate the system. So you need to log in as a pharmacist intern, and once you get onto your profile as a pharmacist intern and you go to your manual there, you see it's highlighted in red, then you can download your intern and tutor manual. We have some questions coming out of that manual, so you need to know that manual from top to bottom. And some of those documents that I've mentioned earlier, they are also in that tab or under manual. So your GPP is there, your GMP is there, and your EML and STGs are also there. Thanks, Dr. D. And also, still on the website, you don't need to even log in to access these ones. You just go to the front page of the website, and at the top there's 5 tabs. So you choose the middle one, which is the publications. So there's 2 of them. So there's legislation and there's Pharmacia. Pharmacia, you know, is the newsletter that Pharmacy Council produces. So there's some questions sometimes that arise from the Pharmacia. For instance, we can ask you, the SAPC, the Pharmacy Council is comprised of how many members? So sometimes you can get that information from the Pharmacia. So I think just find out yourself with what's happening in Pharmacy Council. The Pharmacia will give you most of those answers. And then under legislation, you get your rules, your acts, your board notices. I think that's coming in the next slide. I'll go through that. Next slide, Dr. D. So under legislation, you will find there's 6 topics there. So the first one is the Act. So that's where you can find the Pharmacy Act. You can download it if you want. And then on the regulations, you see all the regulations that are there. So you can also download some of them that are relevant. So they are available for you to browse through them. Next slide. And then you continue still under legislation. There's rules, your ethical rules are there. So please go through them because domain number 5 talks to the rules most of the time. So please know those ones because it's a huge chunk of questions and a lot of marks for you. So you need to know the stuff. Next slide, please. And then there's also board notices under legislation. You will see that when you download the GPP at some point, there has been some changes on the GPP, and the changes you'll find them on the board notices. So meaning that we have not yet changed the GPP, but the board notice is more like an amendment to one of the clauses in the GPP. So you need to make a reference. If you read the GPP, check if there's no board notice, a board notice that refers you back to the GPP, because you may answer based on what the GPP says, but you find that there's new information now on the board notice. So please make sure that you also go through the board notices. It's very, very important. Thank you, Dr. D. So how to use the reference material. So with the books that we've given you as examples, we're not limiting you to which books you want to use, but it's much easier. From experience, it's much easier to use the ones that we've given you. So you must know how to use the reference material. Do you know where's the index of inside the book, where to go? What information can I find in each reference material? For instance, if I ask you a question, would you know this question? The answer for this question comes from the SAMF, or does it come from the EDL? Does it come from the Martindale? So you need to know how to use your reference material and what information each book or each reference material contains, and what answers you'll get from those reference material. So the tips that we give you as SAPC, we are very, very kind, is that more is not necessarily better. So you can write your exam and have 17 books next to you. So you have more, but it won't help you because you don't know where to start. So avoid using a reference book that you have never used before. If it's your first time in writing the exam, please just close it. So you still have now a few weeks to go through some of the reference books. So then at least you'll be familiar when it's exam time. But if you're going to open it on that day of the exam, you're going to be in trouble. So we don't recommend that. If you're going to use your notes from university, that may not help because the information may no longer be valid. But also remember that we are now the exam is not testing your theory as in at university, but the questions are more practice related, because now you are working, now you are in practice, you are seeing patients, you're doing a lot of things. So the questions that we're asking you are practice related. For online references, please make sure that you familiarize yourself with the online references. We've shown you where to get those online references. Your GPPs and all that, go to the Pharmacy Council website, download them before the exam. I mean, I think after the session, just download the references, because it's very, very time consuming to search during exam. Imagine you are writing an exam, there's a question, and you have to go to the website to download when you get the answer. So try and download them as soon as possible. And also remember that the information that you get, if you're trying to use to use Google, the information that you get, it will not really correlate with what's on the reference material. So the answer that you got from Google, we will not accept it. We will only accept the one that's on the reference material. Thank you, Dr. D. Other useful online resources, we include the EM guidance. It's very, very useful because some of the EML and STGs are referred on, they use that as reference. So they are linked in a way. The MSD manual, professional version, also please use that one. The SAPRA website, you can get your GMP there. So if you have time, you can go through the SAPRA website. And I'm sure that you are aware now that the SAMF is also available now as an app. You can download it, but unfortunately it's not free because you buy the book. So even on the app, you have to pay. I think it's about 800 if I'm not mistaken. So the questions that we normally get regarding online resources is whether, can I use apps? Yes, you can use the app. The EM guidance is an app, so you are allowed to use an app. The EML and STGs are also in the app form, so you can also use those ones. Also, can I use a second device for resources? Yes, you are allowed to do that because the one device you are writing the exam, the other one you are using the app to get your answers as a reference. Thank you, Dr. D. So some helpful tips on how to approach the questions. I think for me personally is you must read the question carefully, don't rush. Read and understand. That's the main thing. Most of the people who don't get the answers correct, they know the answer, but the question does not even say that. That means they haven't read the question. So the main thing is please read the question carefully. Identify the statements of which you are sure of. So once you read, you know, okay, this one I've seen it before, I'm quite familiar to it. Okay, then go to the next one. And then also confirm the statements that you are not sure of using your references. So you need to confirm your statements using your references because those ones you're not sure of, then you use your reference to confirm. That will save you so much time. If you cannot complete a question, please carry on. When you have the time towards the end of the exam, come back to it and do it again. So if you have time, hopefully that you'll answer all the questions and get your free marks from the general question. So the type of questions that we'll ask, you will not see any question using a false or a not or an incorrect. All the questions will be asking you whether the statement is true and is and or is correct. So we're not going to use any negatives on the questions. So you'll be expecting only positives on the questions. And the tricky one, maybe people don't understand, is we will ask you a question where we say the most, what is the most appropriate action to take? So what does it mean when you say what is the most appropriate action to take? So it implies that more than one answer out of the 4 options you're given is possible, but you must select the most inclusive answer. So I hope that is clear. When we're asking you what is the most appropriate action to take to manage this patient, for instance, so the answers, the 4 of them, or 3 of them may be correct, but we want the one that is inclusive, that will be, in a way, holistic in terms of managing that patient. Thank you, Dr. D. So how do you manage your time? I think Dr. D did speak about this. For the general questions, you have 150 minutes, which is 2 hours and 30 minutes. And you have 80 multiple choice questions, and you need to get 40 out of the 80 to pass, but please just get the 80 and surprise us. We like surprises. And each question has 4 options. So you'll have 1 question and you'll have 4 options to select from. So make sure that at least you spend less than 2 minutes per question, less than 2 minutes. So read carefully but time yourself as well. The fortunate part for you is that there's no negative marking. So make sure that you don't leave anything blank. Even if you're not sure, just choose one. You may be lucky, win your lotto and just get 1 answer correct. There's no negative marking. We are not in university. Yeah. Next slide, Dr. D. Okay.
Thank you so much. So we do have the form and we have got responses from interns. So thank you to everyone who has answered the questions. Let me just bring it across onto this screen. Okay, so I just want to refresh my page. We have 231 responses. I'm just going to scroll down so that you can see the responses per question. Would you like me to read out the question?
Yeah, sure, please. Thank you.
Okay, so the first question, a breastfeeding mother inquires whether it is safe to use aspirin. Which of the following reference sources would assist you in determining the safety of this medicine for this patient? The 212 chose option A, 5 chose option B, 11 chose British Pharmacopedia, and 2 chose the Pharmacy Act.
Okay, thank you, Dr. D. I really like the 2 people who chose the Pharmacy Act. It's very funny that there's breastfeeding in the Pharmacy Act, though. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. But the correct answer is the daily drug use. So 213 people got it correct. That's the correct reference. And then those who chose the British Pharmacopeia, that reference, it is used for monograph, for formulation, for drug substances. So it's not really, it won't give you an answer in terms of managing the safety of this medicine for this patient. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The second question is a patient presents with a prescription for methotrexate for rheumatoid arthritis. Which of the following counseling points is true? Option A, there were 85 responses. Option B, 68. Option C, there were 36. And the last option, there were 44 that chose option D.
Yeah, this is a mixed fruit. Yeah, it's like we're not sure of the answers. Yeah, the correct answer, it is D. Contact the doctor if they have been exposed to someone with chickenpox or shingles. So 44 people got it correct. The reason why A is not correct, because it's given once weekly for rheumatoid arthritis. So that is why it is incorrect. And then for question B, it is correct if you have Googled the answer. It is correct if you have Googled. So, but remember, I told you that if you Google an answer, it will be different from what the reference material refers to. Then you might be in trouble. Also, the medication itself, it causes mucosal ulceration and bleeding. And then question C, why is it wrong? So it is not recommended for chronic patients, especially if you take it with meals to prevent. You must take it with meals to prevent GI toxicity. So the correct answer, it is D. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question, quality risk management supports a scientific and practical approach to decision making. Which of the following is true regarding quality risk management? Option A, the regulators assess and manage risk using random management tools. There were 23 that chose that as the correct option. Option B, the use of statistical tools to support quality risk management methods. 10 people chose that option. 166 chose option C, which is tools for documented sorry, I just can't see the word in between that. So tools for documented reproducible methods to accomplish the quality risk management. And then the last one is tools for specific areas pertaining to drug substances and drug medicinal products. And 31 chose option D.
Thank you. The correct answer is answer C, and most of the interns got the correct answer. It is part of manufacturing, this one, so maybe those from hospital and community pharmacy may not be familiar to it, but it is relevant to all the interns. The correct answer is correct because if you look at the question, remember we said you must read the question. So if you look at the top, there it says supports a scientific and practical approach to decision making. So the correct answer is just very obvious. It gives you the answer that it provides you with documented, transparent, and reproducible, scientific and practical. So it is just obvious, the answer. It was just a given one on this one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Question 4, you receive a prescription for venlafaxine XL 150 milligram once daily to be repeated for 5 months. The patient requests you to dispense 75 milligram capsules instead of 150 milligram capsules. Which of the following actions is most appropriate for you to take? The first one, option A, 19 chose it as the correct option. Dispense 75 milligram capsules as requested by the patient. Option B, dispense 150 capsules as instructed by the prescriber. 24 chose this option. Option C, consult the doctor before dispensing the medication. 188 chose this as the correct option. And the last one, advise the patient to take 150 capsule every second day. There were 4 that chose this as the correct option.
Thank you, Dr. D. The correct answer is C. Consult the doctor before dispensing the medication. So this one, it comes from the ethical rules. One of the ethical rules, it says you are not allowed, as a pharmacist, you are not allowed to amend a prescription without a doctor's approval. So I know some of us are not even aware of that because we see the patient in front of us and we're feeling kind, we need to assist them there and there. But in terms of the ethical rules, as a pharmacist, you are not allowed to amend a prescription without a doctor's approval. You can just give them a call over the phone and amend it once they give you a response, or you can ask the patient to go back to the doctor so they can amend the prescription. So the correct answer is answer C. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, question 5, the formulation and manufacture of an injectable solution necessitates that the product must not be manufactured on the same premises as the oral dosage form. The second one, option B, that 203 candidates chose, the product must be in a sterile solution dosage form. Option C, the clean areas used in the manufacturing procedure need not comply with the clean areas used in the manufacture procedure need not comply with the sterile conditions. And the last one, the active ingredient must be optically active, and two candidates chose this as the correct option.
Thank you, Dr. D. I think the request is please read the question properly, and the keyword there is injectable. Injectable, it means that it can be intravenous, can be intramuscular. So it's something that is going through your veins or your muscles. And if you have chosen C and you're saying that you should not be in a sterile condition when it's prepared, it's very strange. Because it must go through your body, but it must be prepared in an area that's so unsterile. So the correct answer there is B, which says the product must be in a sterile solution dosage form. Because remember, it's injectable. And I think the last option, the active ingredient must be optically active. I think you need to understand what optically active means. It just doesn't mean optics as in seeing, using your eyes, but it means that when they're doing their tests, the beam of light has to pass through that molecule that molecule that it interacts with, but we wouldn't know that, right? So the correct question, the correct answer, sorry, is B. The product must be in a sterile solution dosage form. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Question 6, a 24-week pregnant hospitalized patient develops an unknown infection. Which antibiotic is suitable as empiric treatment? Option A, trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. 44 candidates chose that as the correct option. 70 chose piperacillin tazobactam. 114 chose clindamycin, and 7 chose kanamycin.
Thank you, Dr. D. I think you'll be tired of this. Read the question and read the statements and see if you understand them, if you're familiar with them. So in this one, the first point that you need to notice there, it's a pregnancy. 24-week pregnancy, so it's pregnancy. Number 2, unknown infection, unknown. The third one, empiric treatment. So those are the 3 ways that you need to, because we don't know what they mean. So pregnancy, you know, there's lots of risks when you give medicines when there's a pregnant patient coming in the pharmacy. If the infection is unknown, what do you do? Do you bring in an AK-47 antibiotic, or do you start from the basic? Because you don't know what cause, because you haven't done any sensitivity test. So you don't know what's the cause of that infection. So, and what does it mean, empiric treatment? So empiric treatment, it means that it's something that you're basing on from your clinical experience or from your observation. So you just, in a way, giving it an educated guess, because you don't know what caused the infection. So you just, based on what you have experienced as a clinician or as a pharmacist, so you use that as your guide. So the correct answer for this one, it is answer B, which is the piperacillin tazobactam. The first one, it has sulfamethoxazole, sulfonamide. So sulfur is not recommended in the third trimester of pregnancy. That's number 1. That is why we can't give it to this pregnant woman. And then B, it is clindamycin. Clindamycin, it's reserved for severe infections, and that is you need to have also sensitivity test results, what caused that infection, then you would know that you need to give clindamycin. So it's not given as a first-line treatment. So obviously, and then kanamycin, it is not given at all in pregnancy because it has toxic effects. It is an aminoglycoside, so it's not given at all in pregnancy. So you are only left with piperacillin. Piperacillin, remember, it is a penicillin, and tazobactam, it is a beta-lactamase inhibitor. So penicillin, most of the time, is the first-line treatment when you're giving antibiotics. So we don't give AK-47 antibiotics when we don't know the infection, and we just it's a guesswork. There are no results from the lab or what caused the infection. Thank you, Dr. D. I hope that was clear.
Thank you so much. So I think at this point, if you have any questions about the general section of the examination, I do see that there have been a few questions that we have had come through, but majority of these relate to the last section of our presentation this afternoon, when we are going to cover the exam conditions and the remote examination conditions. So I'm going to answer these as we go through the next part of the presentation. I just want to give just a few more moments if anyone has questions that relate specifically to content of the general section of the examination. Okay, as it is getting quite late into the evening, I don't want to delay it too much longer. All of the questions that have been posted relate to the examination conditions, and that will be what we are going to do in the next section. There was a question from Anonymous that has just come through. Were these questions example of general questions? And yes, these are examples of general questions. General questions are those relating to general practice according to the various sectors of pharmacy. So we have calculation questions, and there are 40 of those, and general questions, there are 80 questions. Okay, so let's move on to the last part of the presentation. The pre-registration examination will take place on, well, it takes place 3 times every year, normally in the month of March, then in August, and lastly in October. So the January and March dates have already passed. The next practice examination is coming up on the 2nd of June, with the pre-registration examination in the first week of August. The practice examination is going to be held on a Thursday, and it will be written on one day. So you will start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you will finish the exam. So you will write the calculation section from 9 until 11. You will have a short half-an-hour break, and when you come back at 11:30, you will then write until 2 o'clock. The practice examination is when we're writing both sections on the same day. The practice examination, there are no entrance criteria, so you do not need to meet the CPD or the progress report criteria in order to write the exam, so you can write it at any time. You can also write it more than once, however, it is compulsory to write it at least once. So the first opportunity to write the practice exam is on the 2nd of June. The next practice examination is going to be held on the 18th of August. The 18th of August, following that, we'll have a pre-registration examination on the 25th and 26th of October. This examination is written on a Tuesday and a Wednesday. So the first opportunity that majority of interns have to write the exam that registered in 2022 is the August examination, followed by the October. Okay, so bookings for the pre-registration examination. As soon as we open up for the pre-reg exam, you will be notified. So you will be notified when bookings for the practice examination open up, and it will allow you then, when you log on to the website using your P number, your ID number, and your password, you can then go to examination bookings, and it will list the practice examination as a booking. And it will do so for the same way for the August examination. Okay, so please make sure that you are that we have your correct cell phone number and your correct email address, because we send information to you via SMS and email. So make sure that we've got your correct information. While you are doing that and updating and checking that we've got that information correct, please take the opportunity to upload a profile picture. We're going to explain in a couple of slides' time what we mean by your profile picture. So once again, you are notified via email and SMS when the examination bookings have opened and when they will close, and if a late booking fee is applicable. So bookings open for the August and October exam. So this is the one, the 5 and 6 August exam, as well as the exam held in October. Bookings open 6 weeks before the exam, and they close 4 weeks before the exam. We allow after that a 14 days, so 14 days before the exam, we allow for late bookings. If you are doing a late booking, a fee is applicable, and this fee will be charged after you write the examination. We will retrospectively charge you the late booking fee, but this is only if you are booking within 4 weeks to 2 weeks before the exam. However, everyone will have the opportunity to book when bookings open 6 weeks before the exam, and please make sure you do this before the bookings close 4 weeks before the exam. Okay, so we have been asked about this practice examination, about other examinations that you can do for practice. So the practice examination can be found on the website. You can also find practice examinations on your profile when you log onto the platform and you're at your dashboard and you click on pre-registration examination. Under that tab, the next group of blocks that it picks up, it will then give you the opportunity to have the practice examination there. So take the opportunity to go through the practice examinations. Remember that we only have limited resources in terms of practice exams, and that we do encourage you to be aware of your everyday practice and also to go through multiple calculation examples using one of the prescribed textbooks. Okay, the profile picture is very important. The examination is going to be conducted remotely. Therefore, we need to verify you as the candidate writing the examination. So we need for you to upload your profile picture. So it is compulsory that you upload a profile picture. The profile picture has to be a color image. It has to be taken in the last 6 months, and it has to be of your head and shoulders. Please note that in the exam, we take images of you periodically throughout the session, and we then compare that to your profile picture. So when you are taking your profile picture, please make sure that your head is not covered and that you are not wearing a cap. So because we need to be able to see your face and compare that to your image taken during the exam. Likewise, during the examination, we need to be able to see you, and we please again do not wear any head coverings, and you cannot wear a cap on the day of the exam. If you do wear head coverings for religious reasons, please would you contact the Office of the Registrar and we can assist you with this further. Okay, so where do you upload your profile picture? When you log onto the website, you will see that this blue panel over here is dashboard. So whenever I refer to the dashboard, it refers to those blocks that appear as soon as you log on. But in order to access the profile picture, you would actually have a look at the right-hand side of the page in the top corner over here. You've got a little drop-down arrow. If you click on that, you can actually choose a file, and so you can take a picture. So remember, we want a picture of your head and shoulders, and it has to be a color picture taken in the last 6 months. So please make sure that you are doing that. If we cannot recognize you and we cannot verify you as the candidate, you will be removed from the examination. So it's very important. It's one of our criteria in terms of security measures that we need to verify that you as an intern are taking this examination. So please make sure that you have updated your profile picture accordingly. So who is eligible to write the examination? So interns that are writing for the first time need to have completed 6 months. Okay, so completed 5 months. So you need to be in your 6th month. So you have to have completed. So if you have started your internship on the 1st of January, you would have completed 5 months on the 31st of May, 2022. You need to have submitted 6 CPDs and you need to be competent in 3. Okay, so please make sure that when you are booking for the exam, you have submitted 6 CPDs and you are competent in 3 of those. You need to have completed the practice exam and your tutor must have submitted the first 3 progress reports. Okay. The second criteria applies for those that are registered for a longer period of time, and these are interns that are in their 9th month. They need to have submitted and been competent in 6 CPDs. Again, they need to have completed the practice examination, and their tutor must have submitted 4 progress reports. Okay, so after 9 months, we expect that you would now have been competent in all 6 CPDs. So please note the differences between those that are in their 6th month and those that are in their 9th month. Okay, so that's very important. You need to meet these criteria upon booking for the examination. Please note that the entrance criteria for 2022 will not be changed. So make sure that you, as Ms. McQuena said earlier, that you're taking the opportunity at the moment to ensure that you are going to meet the CPD criteria. Just a reminder that your CPDs, so the CPD dates, all of this information is available on the website. So a number of these dates have already passed, but if you submitted CPDs on the 6th of May, the next date that you will receive feedback is the 30th of May. So these dates are kept to, so we are so we apply these dates in terms of the last day of submission and when you will receive feedback by. Okay, so please do note though that the closer we are getting to the month of July and August, if you are planning to still submit during these times, it reduces your opportunity to write the pre-registration examination because you need to meet these criteria when you are booking for the examination. And likewise, when we are getting towards October. Also, just a reminder, if you haven't submitted your CPDs by the 28th of October 2022, you will then have to wait until the 6th of January 2023, and you will receive feedback by the 3rd of February 2023. So it's a gentle reminder to please submit without delay, and do not wait until the next submission date. Submit as soon as possible. As mentioned earlier, the CPD unit is going to be having a feedback session on the 7th and 8th of June. So please look out in your emails, and you should also receive an SMS with the reminder to be able to attend these sessions should you require it. Okay, so the remote examination, there was a question earlier in the chat that asked, is the examination going to be written remotely? And yes, it is going to be written remotely. We need, well, you can decide where you are going to write the examination. You can write at your place of residence, your workplace, or if need be, you can make arrangements to write at the Arcadia offices of the South African Pharmacy Council. You need to confirm your venue when booking for the examination, and we do note your location when you are writing the examination. So that's really important that we do track your location during the examination process or when the examination is written. Okay, so we often are asked these questions. Which device will I need? How will I communicate? What do I need during the exam? And a lot of this information has already been shared, especially what you need to bring into the exam. But we are just going to go through the additional information regarding devices and communication. Okay, so with the remote examination, your examination conditions are really in your hands. So you need to make sure that you have found a quiet, suitable workplace. So please don't write at your place of employment if you don't have enough space and if you don't have a stable internet connection. So please make sure that you are choosing a work environment that is suitable. You need enough space for your devices as well as to easily use the reference materials that you have. Okay, so please keep calm and communicate with your remote invigilator if you're experiencing any difficulty. We do have a chat function on the exam platform, and I will show you that so you can communicate with us. We also have other routes of communication, so please don't worry. And this is what the practice exam is for, so that you can test these methods of communication to ensure that you can contact us. Once again, we recommend that you download electronic references before the examination date to make sure that you have everything available. Also, once again, just a reminder that we do not recommend that you use any reference that you haven't used before. Okay, your equipment is really important, especially your calculator, as well as a paper and pen. Okay, so looking at devices. So the device that you can use, the biggest and the most important criteria is that it needs to have a camera, because we need to see you during the exam. So it has to have a camera. You can use a desktop or you can use a laptop. You can also use other devices such as a cell phone. You can also use a tablet. We suggest, though, just in terms of screen size, although the questions do alter accordingly, that you try to use a device such as a laptop. However, as mentioned, it is mobile responsive and it's totally up to you. Must have a camera, and you need to activate. So you have to link your camera. You have to allow your camera to access you during that examination. In terms of connectivity, there's a minimum of a 3G connection, so please make sure. And we know that we are living in the times of load shedding at the moment, so please make sure that you do have connectivity and that you do have a backup. The browser that we suggest is Google Chrome, so please would you use Google Chrome when you are accessing the exam platform. It is also responsive on Firefox and Microsoft Edge, but our go-to browser is Google Chrome. Okay, so where will you find the examination? The examination will be found. So you go under registered person, you click on pharmacist intern, then moving to the pre-registration examination that is highlighted in orange over here. The link for the exam will be posted here. This is not the only place that you can find the exam. You can also find it under your profile when you log in with your with your P number, your ID number, and your password. When you go to your dashboard and you click on pre-registration examination, you can click on there, the examination tab there, and it will take you to the same place. So we have two places that you can find the examination. Please make sure that you do know and that you have visited these places beforehand so that you're not stressed on the day with where you're going to find the exam. Okay, in terms of load shedding or loss of electricity, please make sure that you remain calm. Check your load shedding schedule ahead of time and make an alternate plan. There was also a question within the chat regarding KZN that there has been after the rainfall that they experienced in the last couple of weeks, they have been experiencing problems with power and electricity. If you are worried at this stage that you won't have a stable internet connection, please would you make alternate arrangements. You can ask your employer if you can write at your place of employment. You may need to travel to a nearby town, etc. But you need to make sure that if you're writing remotely, you do have access to a stable internet connection. We also suggest that you have an alternate Wi-Fi connection. So if you are using a fiber connection that would go down during load shedding or during a power outage, that you then have accessibility through your phone and that you can hotspot your phone. So make sure that you have got a backup and that you have thought about this before the examination. If you're unable to find an alternate Wi-Fi connection, you may also change your location. So notify us via the WhatsApp number to say, I am moving to a different location to write my examination, or I don't have access at the moment, and let us help you through that because we can advise accordingly. But remember at all times that the platform is mobile responsive. So therefore, if I'm using my laptop and unfortunately the connection drops or maybe the battery runs out, I can immediately switch to my cell phone. It will log me out from my connection on my laptop. I'll have to go through the processes of logging on again and receive a new OTP. However, you will be able to access the exam where you left it. Okay, so once again, make sure that you keep calm. We can change devices. You can change from a laptop to a cell phone. As soon as you log on again to the platform, you will receive a new OTP, and this is going to be sent to your cell phone. We also send the same OTP to your email. So make sure that you have that on hand. All the questions, regardless of which part of the exam you are busy with, are saved as you proceed through the exam. So as you move to the next question, your answers are saved. If you change your device, however, the system randomizes the questions again. So if you were on question 5 and you lose connectivity and you log in on your cell phone, when the first question comes up again, it appears as question 1. However, it is a new question 1. You haven't seen those questions. And the first 5 questions that you answered initially using your laptop have all been saved. Each question, as you answer it, is time-stamped, and we have a record of what date and what time you answer each of the questions. So please make sure that you've got a second device on hand just in case. Okay, someone was asking, what is the day of the exam going to be like? So the first day of the examination, we would like you to log in between 8 and 9 in the morning. And we've given a full hour for you to log on to ensure that you have ample time to access the website, receive your OTP, and that you have enough time to calmly begin the examination when we start the exam at 9 o'clock. No one has access before 9 o'clock to that examination, regardless of what time they logged onto the website. Okay, but it gives us enough time in case there are any problems to sort them out before 9 o'clock. As the exam starts at 9 o'clock, images will be taken throughout the exam to verify the candidate writing the examination, and the examination will end at 11 o'clock. Day 2 looks much the same. Please log in between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Please do not press start the exam until 9 o'clock. If you press start the examination ahead of time, it immediately takes you to the post-examination survey. You don't have access and you're going to have to log on again to the website. So please don't press start the exam on day 2. Wait until 9 o'clock and we will commence the exam at 9 o'clock. We open the examination centrally for all the candidates and you will only have access from 9 o'clock and the general section will end at 11:30. Okay, so where you sit is really important. Because we take these images of you throughout the examination, we need to ensure that we can see you. And if you're sitting in front of a window, it is often quite difficult to see you. So please would you close the curtains or sit in front of a wall. Make sure that it is the lighting is sufficient that we are able to see you. Once again, if we can't see you, we will have to contact you during the examination to ask you to move slightly so that we can see you better. Ensure, please, that your camera is on, because if we cannot verify you in the examination, then you will be removed from the exam. It's really importantly that you dress appropriately because the images that are taken form part of your permanent record. So you need to make sure that you are dressed appropriately. So please make sure that you've changed out of your pajamas and that you are dressed and ready to write that exam. Okay, so I wanted to just give you a short demonstration of what the exam looks like when you log on. So if you just give it, it takes a few seconds. So once again, you can find the examination under pre-registration examination under the pharmacist intern page. You would then see it over there. It says click here to access the exam. You would put in your P number. You would then put in your ID number. And then lastly, you put in your password. Please make sure that you know your P number, your ID number, and your password, because you won't be able to access the site without this. You would then press enter. And sometimes, like I've shown you here, it takes a little bit of time before it moves to the next page. The next measure that we've built into the system is that you need to enter in a one-time password. The one-time password is sent to your cell phone number, and it is also sent to your email. Now here, as you can see, I'm waiting quite a long time to receive my OTP. So it does take a little bit of time for that OTP to be delivered. Please do not press resend the OTP, because immediately that then triggers another OTP to be sent, and it's going to delay you in getting the correct one. As you can see, that OTP was sent to my email. I copy it from my email, And I just want to, at this point, just stop this. I copy it from my email and I enter it in. Straight away, it takes me to the declaration. Now, the declaration is very important because as you are going through the declaration, you are ticking each of these boxes. And these boxes, what it says is very important. You are confirming that you are writing the examination at the place that you have stipulated in your booking confirmation. You're also confirming that you're not sitting next to or in close proximity to any other candidate writing the examination. You may not receive any assistance from any person while writing the examination. You may not communicate verbally, electronic, in person with any candidate, pharmacist, tutor, or registered person during the examination. You will only use reference material permitted in the examination, and you will not give any assistance to any person writing the examination. I will not share, copy, and this is really important, that you will not share, copy, or discuss the examination with any person during or after the exam. I will inform Pharmacy Council if I am aware of any candidate that has contravened the examination code of conduct. Please note that at this, you cannot continue with the exam until you have ticked each one of those points. And only once you have ticked all of those points does it give you a continue button, which you need to click on, and then you will proceed. Okay, it brings up this next page, which is the Start the Exam page. And I just want to go through this because the Start the Exam page, it gives you the details of the time for the exam. It also will list the examiners and the moderators, and it gives you instructions. Now, the instructions are that you need to ensure that you're writing the correct section of the exam. You may only start the exam at 9 o'clock, so please don't press Start the Exam until 9 o'clock. The time-lapse reminders will pop up on your screen every 30 minutes, and for the last 30 minutes, it will pop up every 15, 10, and 5 minutes. So these are these reminders that are going to pop up, and you need to move through these and click on them in order to move through the exam. Okay. You also need to use your mouse to select the correct answer. And for every answer, for every question, there are 4 correct answers. Once you have answered the correct, so once you have answered a question, you cannot return to the question. So once I have answered a question, I cannot return to it. If I don't want to answer a question, or if I'm unsure of the answer, I can revisit that specific question at the end of the exam. It's important to note that we do have randomization of questions, which means question 1 for me is not the same as question 1 for you. Okay. That once you have clicked on Submit button at the end of the exam, then your paper is submitted. Okay, and so those are the general rules regarding the exam. So every question contains a stem followed by 4 options. I'm going to show you an example of this in the next little clip that we're going to go through. You can only choose one correct answer. Once you have moved from that question and you have answered that question, you cannot revisit that question. Questions, remember, are randomized, so your question 2 and someone else's question 2 is not going to be the same. Okay, so I just want to move then to our next presentation. It's also just very, very quick, and it just shows you an example of an examination question. So this is an example of an examination question, and I just want to stop it over. Yeah, okay. So this is an example of a question over here. You have a question stem. So this is question 9. You have a question stem followed by 4 options. You then need to select A, B, C, or D. And what I want to show you over here is that these are the online references that you have available on the website. So the online web references that you have, if I go back just a tad, what you can see over here is that this is the list of references that you can access through the website, but you would also be able to download these during the practice exam. These also can be found on the SAPC website. The only document that you cannot find on the website is the Martindale, but the Martindale is available if you open it during the examination using the References tab. And this is how it will appear when you open it. So you will then be able to open up the document. Remember sometimes that opening up a document can take a bit of time. So you can close that reference, and I just want to stop it here. This is our chat function with the Invigilator. So over here, you would be able to press on Chat with the Invigilator. The Invigilator can send you a message, and you can send the Invigilator a message. We can also send everyone writing the examination the same message. So that's in terms of the Invigilator chat function. So if you're having a problem during the exam, you can chat with your Invigilator, who will be able to provide assistance. We also have a WhatsApp line, which you can send a WhatsApp message to, and we can help you. So sometimes you can only chat with your Invigilator if you are connected. So if you have any connection problems, it is then best to contact the Invigilator via WhatsApp. Okay, so that is how it is going to appear. You can see here, I am answering the question, and as I answer it, it then creates a blue mark with a white inner dot, and that shows you that you have answered. I can change this option. So at this point, I can change this from B to C or B to D. But as soon as I go next question, that is the answer that is then going to be taken as my answer that I have chosen. Okay, so just to show you that you can then minimize the chat with the Invigilator function as well. So you can actually minimize it by clicking chat with the Invigilator, and then you would then just click on next question to move to the next question. So I've only shown you really here one example of a question, how you access your references and how you would chat with the Invigilator. Remember that all of this you will be exposed to during the practice exam, so that nothing will be new to you on the day of the exam. Okay, so this is just an overview. You will have access to these slides, so in case you would like to have a look at this, so you would go through the login page, then you receive your OTP, you would then read through your declaration. The declaration is very important because you are signing each of those. As you are ticking them, you are agreeing to them and you are signing them. And the last would be the Start the Exam tab that you can only start at 9 o'clock. Once again, the question would appear, a question per page. You would use your mouse to select the correct answer. What I haven't shown you is that at the end of the examination, we have a post-examination declaration. And then once that is complete, you have the survey. So the post-exam declaration is going to appear at the end of the general section of the examination, as well as the post-exam survey. We've been through the declaration, but please make sure that you have read through it and that you do take these each one of these lines very, very seriously, and that you are obeying the examination code of conduct. We have looked at this. It is one question per page. We've discussed the randomization of questions. It is a timed examination, but questions aren't timed. So whether you spend 10 minutes per question or you spend 1 minute per question, that is up to you. You cannot revisit any questions that have been answered. You can only visit unanswered questions at the end of the examination. In terms of this is the single best option. We have a question stem with 4 options, and then you need to choose the correct answer by clicking with your mouse on any one of those little circles. Okay, your examination is submitted. Remember that each time you answer a question, your answer is submitted. So your answers are saved, and we timestamp every answer as you proceed through the examination. So please don't worry. Your answers are saved. If you lose Wi-Fi connection at any time, you do not need to worry. Each one is timestamped and recorded. You may only revisit unanswered questions. And once you press submit, you don't have access to any questions. So right at the end, once you've completed the last question, you don't have access at that point to go anywhere else but to the post-exam declaration and the survey. Even if you press the back arrow, you cannot revisit any questions. It is not enabled. So you can't revisit anything that you have answered. And that if you press the back arrow, it's not going to take you back to any of those questions. Okay, what you are declaring at the end of the exam, and this is really important, you are once again confirming that you have completed the exam without any assistance and you have adhered to the examination code of conduct. You also understand that if you are found to have contravened the examination code of conduct, the SAPC will implement disciplinary action against you in terms of Chapter 5 of the Pharmacy Act. You'd also need to once again confirm that you have not shared or retained any of the contents of the examination via electronic, printed, written or verbal means with any person. So please make sure that you are adhering to the examination code of conduct. Your examination results will be released by Pharmacy Council once they have been moderated and approved by the registrar. Results are available online. So the process of the examination, it's not marking of the examination, but it is ensuring that everything has been done correctly and the examination results have been moderated. So this process does take time. Please rest assured that the examination results are marked by the platform, but we remark all of the examinations again. So we take all of the results that we have and we analyze the results and we remark all of the examinations. So you may not apply for a remark because we are 100% confident that your examination mark is correct. You may appeal your examination results, but that's not the same as a remark. So you may appeal, and appeals need to reach council no later than 30 days after the examination is released. If you're unsuccessful in the examination, you may request a review of your exam. And a review of your exam is that you have the opportunity to meet with the Office of the Registrar. We go through each one of the examination questions. You have the opportunity to stop and to have a look at the model answer. You once again cannot retain anything from the questions, but however, you may make notes. So it provides you with the opportunity to look at areas that you perhaps need to improve in so that the next time you write the examination, you will be successful. Okay. So in the event you are unsuccessful in the examination, you may rewrite the examination at the next setting, and it is compulsory to rewrite both sections of the examination, regardless if you passed one section of the examination previously. So if you pass the general section of the exam and you fail calculations in August, you will need to rewrite both the calculations and the general section in October. Okay. The entrance criteria that then apply is that you need to submit and be competent in 6 CPDs. You would have already completed the practice examination. Remember that you are welcome to complete another practice examination. It is not, however, compulsory. And your tutor must have submitted the relevant progress reports according to your date of registration. So those are just a couple of points in terms of rewriting the examination. Okay. So we want to reiterate that your internship is evaluated through 4 components. The first is the pre-registration examination. The second is the CPD portfolio. Then it's the progress report that your tutor completes. And the last one is that you need to have completed 365 days of supervised practice. So we've been through the examination today. The next one is the CPDs, and I'm sure that you all have attended the workshop and that you know that you need to complete 6 CPDs and be competent in 6 CPDs. The progress reports, those that are in community and institutional, have 7 progress reports. For manufacturing, it's 9 progress reports plus a declaration of 400 hours. Academia, it's 3 progress reports, declaration of 400 hours. And I just want to reiterate that it is an achievement of a master's qualification, and that academic interns need to provide evidence that they have achieved their master's qualification. And this does not mean submission of their thesis, but they have passed their thesis and that the university has said that they will graduate. Okay. Proof of competence is favorable reports from your tutor. And all of this, once again, needs to be completed within 365 days. Once you have met all of those criteria, CPD's examination, progress reports, and 365 days, you then can register once you are released as a community service pharmacist. Remember that in terms of community service pharmacists, Pharmacy Council does the registration of pharmacists. However, the placement of CSPs is done by the National Department of Health. Okay, and we hold a workshop in the month of October to explain the process of placement as well as registration. So please make sure that you are aware and that you are visiting the ICSP website, and that you do apply on time for the 2023 annual cycle. Please make sure that you frequently visit this website and that you're available and that you are aware of as soon as applications open. But we will only have a workshop that explains the process of registration as a community service pharmacist and placement of CSPs later in the year. Once again, we will notify you via email and SMS with regards to when this is going to take place. Okay, so let's stop at this point for some questions. I see that there are quite a few in the chat. Natalie, I think I've lost where we left off. So if you could read the questions for me, and between myself, Ms. Mogale and Prof. Steenekamp, I'm sure we'll be able to answer them.
Thanks, Dan. I think you've actually answered most of these. Must the submission of CPDs be before the 14 days before the exam?
Yes, so we need to meet the criteria upon booking for the examination. So please make sure that you have submitted your CPDs timeously and that you have looked at the dates in which you will receive feedback to make sure that you are going to meet the entrance criteria. Another note is please make sure that you have reminded your tutor to submit your progress reports to ensure that you have met that part of the entrance criteria. The system does not allow you to book if you do not meet the criteria.
Will there be access needed for our microphones during the examination to listen to us? What if you don't have a laptop with a working mic?
Thank you so much. So no, you don't need a microphone. We're not going to have a conversation. So the chat function between you and the invigilator is typing. We take images throughout the examination, and that's visual images. So we don't do recordings of sound during the examination. We take images, and you can have the chat function. When we do need to speak to you, we would have to contact you on your cell phone. So please make sure that you have your cell phone on hand.
What if you'll be in another province on the date of the test other than your house address or work address? We will be in Nelspruit when writing, but we are from the Northwest.
Okay, that is not a problem. You can write in Nullspread, but please make sure that you have got a stable Wi-Fi connection and that you have taken all of that into consideration. If there's more than one person, remember we need to make sure that you're not sitting next to one another during the examination, and we'll be able to pick that up through your coordinates as well. So please take that into mind, that you cannot sit adjacent to another person writing the examination, because you did use the word we, so I was just checking what you had meant there. But you are more than welcome to write in a different province. It shouldn't be a problem. But please would you then stipulate, so when you book, it says remote residence, remote work, remote other. So you would then just pick the other tab so that we'd be able to pick where you are writing. Remember that when you log into the website, we do need you to enable your camera, your notifications, which would allow you to have access to the chat function within Invigilator, as well as your location. So all of these little pop-ups will appear. So you have to make sure that you allow these functions. So that is camera, notification, and location.
Betene Dimposo from YouTube asks, if I submit on the 10th of June, will I be able to write the first exam?
Okay, so it's difficult to say, but please make sure that you are aware that you need to have submitted 6 CPDs and are competent in 3 of them. So I wouldn't be able to advise, not knowing how many you have submitted and how many you are competent in yet. My advice is that, and I just want to go back to that slide in terms of the CPDs. Let's just have a look at the release date for CPDs. If you submit on the 10th of June, it's the 4th of July. Yes, the bookings are still open on the 4th of July, but I cannot guarantee that you'll get the results to book for the exam on that day, because remember, you need to be competent in 3 if you are in your first 6 months of internship.
Do we need to book for the practice exam as well?
Yes, you do need to book for the practice exam. The practice exam, so the practice exam, again, we will send you out an email saying bookings have opened, as well as an SMS. You can log onto the website and you can book your place. Remember that there's no booking criteria that apply in terms of CPDs and progress reports. So you do need to book your place though. The examination instructions will be sent to you. If you do not book for the practice exam, you cannot write the practice exam. Only those that have booked have access to the exam platform, and that's why bookings are really important, because it doesn't allow you to access it unless you have previously booked for the exam.
Those of us who wear headscarves for religious purposes, what is the email address we need to contact, and what do we say in the email?
You just have to say that you wear a headscarf for religious purposes, and I will explain the procedure to you. Otherwise, we can discuss it telephonically, but you can send an email to myself, and I'll put my email address in the chat, and we can discuss it there.
How long does it take for results to be released from the date of the exam?
The examination results, we try our best to release the results within a month of the exam being written. However, we can only release the examination results once moderation has been completed, and that the registrar, as well as the pre-registration committee and further counsel, is satisfied with the results. So we can't release it until we have got the full moderator's report, and that only happens after the results have also been statistically analyzed. So it does take a bit of time, and it's only once the registrar is happy and we can then release the results. So it will take about a month.
Must our camera be on for the practice exam? Must we register for the practice exam?
Yes, please make sure that the practice exam there really is a mimics the real examination. And it's very important that it mimics all conditions of the exam. So yes, your camera needs to be on during the practice exam. And you need to make sure that you are try as far as possible to use the same venue, to have access to the same references, etc., so that you know what to expect on the day of the exam. But yes, please make sure that you do have a device with a functioning camera for both the practice exam as well as the actual exam.
Can we take pictures of the practice exam for our reference?
You do actually get feedback with the practice exam, so you don't have to worry about doing that because you actually do have access as part of the information or part of the formative process of writing the practice exam. You will have access to that once you have written the examination, so you don't need to do that during the exam. Please do remember, though, that you cannot take any images or share anything of the actual examination.
Thanks, Dan. We have a few more questions. To all the interns, the bookings for the practice exam have not opened yet. We will send out communication when the bookings open. All right, Dan, in the case of antibiotic treatment for the 24-week pregnant woman, if she has a known allergy to penicillin, which antibiotic would then be dispensed?
Okay, so I'm going to ask Ms. Mogale if she would like to answer this question. Rufilwe, are you still with us?
Yeah, come on. Yes, I'm here. Can you please repeat the question?
In the case of the antibiotic treatment for the 24-week pregnant woman, if she has a known allergy to penicillin, which antibiotic would then be dispensed?
Okay, my thing would be we would go for the clindamycin, but it's going to be very expensive because we need to have sensitivity results. Because remember, with the sulfur one, it is not recommended in the third trimester, and clindamycin is also, it has toxic effects. So clindamycin would be the second best antibiotic to choose. Thank you.
How far apart do the progress reports have to be submitted?
Okay, so the progress reports, it does actually tell you. So it's 12-week, 24-week, 36-week, and 45-week. So have a look in terms of that. It does allow you to submit it a few days earlier or later. So please make sure that you do remind your tutor to submit it on time, but it doesn't have to be on a specific date.
My location on the 5th of August will differ from my location on the 6th of August. Will that be a problem?
Please would you let me know, and I will provide an email address that you can contact us on. So please would you inform us so that we are aware of this.
How do we apply to use the venue provided by SAPC?
Again, using the email address, and I'm just going to display it at the moment, just right at the end of the presentation. Okay. So it's pre-reg exam workshops. I'll actually, I see that it isn't here. It's pre-reg exam workshops at sapc.za.org. I will post it in the chat. But yes, you can contact us. And that was actually the email address that you could contact us regarding the workshops as well. So it's pre-reg exam workshops at sapc.za.org. And you can contact us with that query and we'll be able to assist you.
My work computer does not have a camera. Is a camera needed for the practice exam as well, or only needed for the main exam?
It is needed for the practice exam because during the practice exam, we check that we can see you and see your image during the practice exam. So please, would you try and use another venue to write the examination other than your work if you don't have a functioning camera on that device?
I just want to make sure, are we allowed to use 2 devices during the exam? For example, are we allowed to write the test on a computer while using our phones to access apps and online content?
Yes, you may.
For the exams, is there a limited number of bookings available or any number of interns can write? Is it possible for the bookings to get full?
No, we don't have a number or a set number of interns in terms of booking capacity, but remember that you can only write the examination if you meet the criteria, and so you need to make sure that you have met the CPD criteria, as well as the progress report, the number of practical training days before you're able, and you have written the practice examination. So we will have a large number of interns who are writing the practice examination now in June, but not all of those interns will then meet the criteria to write in August. The bookings don't fill up. We don't restrict numbers in terms of candidates writing the exam.
What happens if I indicate that I'm writing at home when booking for the exam, but because of load shedding or any other reason, I need to write at a family member's house? How do I inform you of the change?
Please would you inform us using our WhatsApp line if it is on the day of the exam. If it is prior and you're aware of this prior to the exam, you can send us an email. So on the day of the exam, I suggest you send us a WhatsApp message. Prior to the examination, you can send us an email.
Will one be able to write exams if a tutor says they don't know what to write because they don't see any progress? Mind you, I'm giving my best, about to fall into depression. Advice on surviving this too, please.
Okay, so I think in this particular case, if you can send me an email and I can discuss it with yourself. So the tutor has to answer specific questions and there's a guide that is given. But please would you contact me via the Pre-Reg exam workshops email and I can help you with the query that you have posted here.
How does the progress report affect the progression of my internship? Can I fail because of it?
Remember that we do need to see that over the year that you are developing the skills and attributes of a pharmacist. So we do look at that, and it's not at a single period of time, but if you're not meeting those criteria at 12 months, we do expect that there's a progression between 12 months and at 12 weeks as compared to 45 weeks. So at the moment, you may not have met all the criteria to be released, but you are probably only within the first few months of your internship. And that will change as you progress through the year. So please don't worry about that too much at the moment, but discuss this with your tutor and have a look at areas in which your tutor suggests that you could improve so that you make sure that you really are the best pharmacist that you can be. So use that opportunity to engage with your tutor, please. But yes, we do need favourable progress reports, and that if your tutor does not submit your progress reports, you will be held back from progressing. So you won't be able to finish your internship until we have received all the progress reports from your tutor.
Do all 6 CPDs have to be marked, or do they just have to be submitted before the exam if you're already competent in 3 CPDs?
The remaining CPDs, so if you are in your 6 month of internship and you need to have submitted 6, competent in 3. So that means that all 6 CPDs have got to be submitted, 3 competent. Okay, so I hope that clarifies. Not all 6 need to be marked and returned to you, but all 6 do need to be submitted on the platform.
Will we get any results for the practice exam?
As mentioned earlier, yes, you do receive the results for the practice examination, but please just do give us a little bit of time after the examination before this is released.
I started my internship in March. If I don't make the requirements by August and need to write in October, can I still write even though it will be my 8th month of internship?
So probably depending on when you started in March, we'd have to do the calculation. There's a good chance that you won't meet the criteria by the August examination. So the first exam that you would be eligible then to write is the October exam. Again, it's difficult to say because I don't know your date of registration in March, but you can contact us for further assistance. Yes, you will have the opportunity to write in October. And in the event you're unsuccessful, the next opportunity would then be March 2023, because we write them in March, August, and October.
Will there be a problem if multiple pharmacist interns write the exam in the same apartment complex where they live?
No, there won't be a problem, but we'll be able to pick this up through your coordinates. However, we do need to be assured that you're not sitting next to one another. So it is going to pick it up if you are sitting adjacent to each other. So yes, you can write to the same apartment complex. Just make sure that you are not sitting in the same room together.
Are the progress report submission dates for academic interns the same, i.e. week 12, 24, and 36?
No, the academic interns have different structure of progress reports, and you can speak to your tutor about this, but there are different progress reports, and the academic interns do not need to submit the progress reports for the examination because it depends on when they would be completing their 400 hours. So theirs is slightly different in terms of the progress report criteria.
And then we have a request for the email address again, please, Deanne.
Okay, I will be sending it through. Just give me a second. Okay, so it's pre-reg exam workshops at sapc.za.org. You would have received this email address when you received notification of the workshop that was happening tonight. So you would have access to this.
Thanks, Deanne. That's all the questions, it appears.
Okay, so thank you so much. Before you go though, please make sure we are going to be posting these links into the chat. Please make sure that you do complete the form. Remember that this form is going to confirm that you attended this evening, and it's going to ask you a couple of questions for feedback, but we do need to know your P number, your name, and your surname in order to mark you off as attended on the register. And remember that we do need to do this. We do need to have all of our attendance registers updated. If you are a tutor, a pharmacist, or a responsible pharmacist, it's not compulsory to complete the attendance register. But if you would like to, as well as providing us with some feedback, please use this second link, and that will be able to provide you with the correct form to complete. So the interns one, as soon as you open it up, it does say interns as compared to tutors, pharmacists, and responsible pharmacists. Just give me a second, and I just want to post these into the chat.
I have posted them, Deanne.
Okay. Thank you so much. I would really like to take this opportunity tonight to say thank you to everyone for attending. I'd like to thank Natalie, Neo, and Marimecha from the CSR unit, who has helped us in displaying this and to be able to broadcast this both on Microsoft Teams, Facebook, and YouTube. So a really big thank you to the three of you for assisting us this evening. I'd like to thank our presenters, Prof. Steenekamp and Rafielwe, for attending and assisting us in preparing for the workshop. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you most especially to the interns who have attended tonight's session. Thank you very much. Please use this opportunity to prepare for the upcoming examinations. Please send us questions, ask us any information, ask your tutor, ask interns from last year. Make sure that you are well prepared for the upcoming examination, and we wish you the best of luck. We look forward to seeing you on the practice examination, and should you have any questions, please send us an email. Thank you, everyone.